Lecture 14, The Addiction Conundrum. So today we want to talk about addiction. And let's start off with a question. Why do people become addicted? Or also, what is addiction? Is it biological? Or is there some sort of social or relational component to it that defies biology? First, I want to talk about the so-called pharmaceutical theory of addiction. Many scientists will tell you that addiction is a result of powerful psychoactive substances hijacking the brain's circuits. Essentially, the idea here is that if you take heroin, cocaine, or methamphetamine long enough, the chemical compounds of these substances will bond with the biology of the brain. This is the pharmaceutical definition of addiction. It's the one that is most prominent in the rhetoric around the drug war. Thus, the war waged to stop it. The logic goes like this. If we can get people not to use these powerful drugs, then they won't become addicted. There are even vaccines and drugs that have been developed that will actually limit the craving of alcohol, cocaine, meth, and heroin. These are actually being used today. And so one of the things that I'd like you to do is to listen to this podcast, The Fix, from the podcast Radio Lab, which talks about this. So according to Radio Lab in this podcast, there is a potential medical fix available for addiction. But let's talk about another theory of addiction that focuses on connection, the connection theory of addiction. So, wait, is the biological definition of addiction enough? Does it explain why people become addicted? One of the earliest forms of treatment for modern addiction is the 12 steps developed by Alcoholics Anonymous. These steps can be summarized as trust God, clean house, and do service. It's a community of support, rigorous honesty, making amends for the past. Johann Hari explains that there is a powerful relational and connection aspect of addiction that has been missed, and you can read or watch a summary of some of Hari's points in his TED Talk, which I've given you a link to, and then, of course, in his book. In essence, trauma, dislocation, and pain can cause addiction. And there's a short video of Gabor Mate, who has long worked with addicts in Canada. So how do we square these two theories of addiction? Where do biology and relationships meet? Well, I want you to think back on this concept that you learned from Radio Lab, this podcast about the fix. They set out to tackle the subject of addiction, and they highlight the amazing power of new drugs that have helped many people, quit using heroin, meth, cocaine, and alcohol. But what is interesting is that there are plenty of cases that even when people have taken these anti-drugs, right, even when their cravings have stopped, some continue to use. So yes, biology matters. Some people might have a genetic disposition to be receptive to stimulants and other psychoactive drugs. But even when that biology is stopped, right, when taking these medicines to combat addiction, when the cravings stop, there is something often deeper, something relational, something painful that can keep people addicted. So whether it is pharmaceutical, right, biological, or relational in nature, it would seem that the worst possible way to deal with addiction would be to criminalize it. But, and I'll leave you with this today, but that's exactly what US policy has done for the past 100 years, is criminalize addiction. Thanks. That's all I have for you today.